I heard that you love the Nintendo DS because it had 2 screens, and you want a new device with 2 screens. Well, check this out. What? That's not what you like? Well then, why did you say you wanted a dual screen device if you didn't actually want one? Pfft, you gotta get your priorities sorted out, buddy. You don't even know what you want. Dual screen doodads. Not long ago, that felt like forever out of reach, like a girlfriend who would play Strip Magic the Gathering with me. But some dreams do come true. In recent now times, we've had a few different dual screen devices enter our lives from yonder. The Retroid dual screen add-on gave us our first real taste. The iNeo Pocket DS was the fancy premium option, and then the Ein Thor showed up and basically took over the handheld world. Everyone loves it, but it is not cheap, and it's kind of overkill if you just want some dusty old DS and retro whatevers, which is where Anbernic shuffles into the scene. This is the RG DS, and I'm calling this the DS Lite because it's very DS Lite like, but without being an exact clone. I've been messing with it for a while. It was terrible before a few days ago, but it's good now. I've been soaking up the DS vibes, playing my favorite games, and seeing what a budget dual screen life feels like. It's not perfect, but for the price, I'm in. Before we go any further, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. And by elephant, I mean the reviews that you might have already seen. When this little dude first showed up, it was rough. The top screen had a glitch where it was getting stuck at 40 Hz. DS games had the screens desyncing. Retro Game Corps even called it a half-baked mess. And I was nodding in agreement so hard I almost broke my neck. But since then, Anbernic pushed a big update that fixed all my major gripes like the refresh rate and the screen syncing. These fixes will be there for everyone on day one who buys this. And Gamma, our hero, is cooking up a Gamma OS build that tackles the same stuff and adds all his usual goodies. So this review is from the perspective of a fresh coat of jank begone has been slathered on this thing. Let's begin with the specs, and these specs are not impressive. It is not a powerful device. It's rocking the RK3568 chip, which is similar to the RK3566 chip. However, it's a bit different. It's too different. But like performance-wise, it's in the same ballpark as the 3566, which has been featured in a ton of handhelds from like 2 years ago. And speaking of specs from 2 years ago, we get 32 gigabytes of internal storage. Definitely gonna want to use an SD card with this thing. 3 gigabytes of RAM though, which should be plenty to cover up to like PS1 and Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast and Nintendo DS and PSP. The screens are both 4 inches, 640 by 480 resolution, and we also get some sort of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.2, a 4000 milliamp hour battery, and it's running Android 14. It comes in 3 colorways. I have this black and red version and this lovely all-white version, and it also comes in a turquoise blue color that looks mighty spiffy. On the front, we have a flippy top, and there's stuff inside. The top screen is up here, 2 front-facing stereo speakers. Yay! Down here is the bottom screen in the middle, and over here we have a top D-pad, a lower left stick, 2 system function buttons. Over here is some face buttons, and a lower right stick, and start and select. On the left is a lanyard hole. On the right is volume up and down, and a power button, and another lanyard hole. Lanyard holes out the wazoo over here. Underneath, we have a headphone hole. Yay! Woo. Up top, we have bumpers and triggers, and a USB-C hole for charging, and another USB-C hole for OTG, and a SD card hole. And around back, there's just some words. Boring words. Let's fix that. There we go. Much better. So this thing obviously looks like a DS Lite, but it's not sized like a DS Lite. I have a white DS Lite. Believe it or not, this is my most played handheld ever. I played the heck out of the DS back in the day. And this DS Lite isn't the same. It's about the same thickness, but it feels flatter because of how much wider it is. It's a bigger boy, but to be honest, I really like that. I like the bigger size when it's open because it's more spacious and comfy, and it needs to be big considering the screens are so much bigger than they are on the DS. And I also like the bigger size when it's closed. I like that it's just a rectangle, that it doesn't have any flared triggers or ergonomic humps. It's like streamlined and elegant. I also really love the way it looks. It has glossy plastic on the top, but all matte plastic on the bottom and the inside. And this white is just clean. I have a white DS Lite and a black DS Lite, and I love them both, but the white one is still the one that catches my eye. This handheld has aged so well, and the DS Lite is, it's like it. The controls are pretty okay, nothing much to report. The input quality on the D-pad is solid, it's accurate and has no issues with false diagonals. The D-pad and buttons are kind of like low profile, and they're clicky but not loud, like a soft click. The bumpers and triggers are a louder click, but not too bad. It's pretty deal withable. The sticks kind of suck though. They're super small and they're not very accurate, and they have cardinal snapping. However, you're probably not going to be playing a ton of stick-centric games on here, so like it's not the end of the world. I think for the price, the controls and the build quality are about what I would want. Not great, but not bad. Good, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The hinge is pretty unique. I've never seen a hinge like this. There are two kind of posts here, and each post has 2 articulation points. So 4 total. That should be good, maybe. I mean, it's a hinge. We can't know how it'll do in the long run. Time will tell. The motion of the hinge doesn't have any snap points, so you can literally put it at any position and it stays there nice and firm. You have to shake it pretty hard to get it to change position. I'm actually a big fan of this hinge. I like the way it feels. I hope it stands up to some abuse. And the screen is fine. I should say the screens are fine, so I will. The screens are fine. Nothing special, but they get the job done. These are 4-inch screens, so they feel quite a bit bigger than the smaller handhelds like the RG35XX Plus or whatever. 640 by 480 resolution, which isn't great, but like this is a cheap handheld, so it's fine. That's a very standard resolution for a retro handheld, so you'll get decent scaling options for all the older retro stuff, and you can upscale lots of stuff to take full advantage of all those pixels. The one issue is that Nintendo DS doesn't scale perfectly on a 480p screen. The Nintendo DS resolution was 256 by 192 per screen, which means that these screens on the DS Lite are 2.5 times the scale of the DS, which means that you're either going to be looking at unbalanced pixels or you're going to have to use an interpolation option to smooth them out. This is not a huge deal for me. In Drastic, you can select from a variety of filters, and one of them is Quilles that does a good job of upscaling to 480p. This looks great to me, but if you're a pixel purist and you want perfectly crispy pixels, these screens might leave you sad and alone on a Friday night, as usual. Like I said at the start, I updated the firmware to the latest version, which was easy to do. I'm not going to give you a tutorial, but I'll link to the Google Drive with all the files and instructions in the thingy below if you need them. That completely fixed the 40 Hz refresh rate bug on the top screen, and this has an updated version of Drastic that fixes the screen desyncing. There is still a very slight delay between the top and the bottom screen, but now it's like, I don't know, like 1 frame instead of 4 frames or whatever it was before. Before the patch, I hated it, but now after the patch, it's not something I would ever even notice in gameplay. It's fine now. And the sound is... it's loud enough, it's clear enough, it's not very bassy, and it's not like great, but it's good, and for the price, yeah, it's nice. Nice for the price. Nice for the price. Nice for the price. Nice for the price. Let me know in the comments how much you appreciate me putting that in your head again. The system is Android 14, which is also nice, and it's not like special, really. Usually on dual screen devices, we get a special button to turn the screen down here into like a control panel or a task manager or whatever. There's nothing like that here. You got a bottom screen that's your main screen with like your Android launcher down there, and your top screen is like an extra screen, and you can launch apps with this little button here. Whatever screen you launch the app on is where the app will be, and you can turn off the top screen in the swipe down menu, but not the bottom screen. And since the update, you can adjust the brightness for each screen separately. But apart from that, it's a pretty bare bones system, but you can still do dual screen stuff. You can launch games up here and watch a YouTube video down here, or vice versa, scroll through articles or walkthroughs or whatever. That's one of my favorite parts about having a dual screen device, and you can do all that stuff here. The front end launcher that we get on here is the RG launcher, and normally normally I'd install ESDE and use that. However, ESDE has a problem launching DS games in the version of Drastic that they have on here. That's fixed if you install the latest version of Drastic. However, that latest version of Drastic still has the screen desyncing issue that we had before. So I chose, for like the first time ever, to stick with the Anbernic launcher. I did, however, swap the SD card for my own games card because the stock card was so bad. I can't believe after all these years that Anbernic still can't figure out how to make a good SD card with ROM sets that make sense. It's just embarrassing at this point. Come on. And when it comes to gaming, there isn't a whole lot to talk about in terms of performance. This RK3568 processor is basically a cousin to the RK3566. You'll get about the same performance, so it's basically what you'd expect on a budget retro doodad, which means that, just like the good old days, you'll get everything up to PS1 and Nintendo DS with a good amount of N64 and Dreamcast and PSP, and some Sega Saturn, and maybe some 3DS, but probably not. I'm not going to go deep into benchmarks and stuff because I don't think you should buy this for high-end stuff. And it would be pretty sad if you did. Think of anything from the Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast and PSP as like a bonus. However, the older retro stuff on here is great. You get so much retro gaming on here and a fun nostalgic DS form factor. If you get one of these, I'm pretty sure you're going to have fun with like GBA or Neo Geo or whatever other old systems you like. When it comes to dual screen gaming, which is probably what most people are interested in, a dual screen device, let's get the bad news out of the way. 3DS is terrible. I couldn't get like anything working well and lots of crashes. 3 gigabytes of RAM is not enough to do proper 3DS emulation, and this chip isn't strong enough even if we did have more RAM. So even though it comes with Azahar installed and you might think that maybe your favorite 3DS games will run, I really wouldn't get your hopes up. You'd probably have better luck getting the phone number of that cute cashier at the bulk food store that always gives you sass when you buy black licorice candies. But Nintendo DS is a different story. DS is actually amazing on here. Not perfect, let's get that out of the way. I don't think you should expect perfection at this price, but it's very close to perfect. You can play the vast majority of DS games with enhanced resolution, which will upscale the 3D graphics to look all high-res and crispy, and almost everything does play great like that. There are some games that will give you minor performance issues, like Mario Kart DS. I was playing this one for a while on the couch, and most tracks ran fine, but some tracks gave me audio stuttering. Actually, at first I didn't even notice, but when I put on headphones, I could hear the stuttering. So you'll just want to drop down to the native resolution for those games, and then they'll work fine. It's a shame that we can't get every DS game running perfectly with enhanced resolution, but maybe they will work someday if we get like an updated Drastic or maybe on Gamma OS. We're gonna have to wait and see about that, but even out of the box, most games will run fine upscaled, so this doesn't even bother me. Oh, and the device comes with a stylus. Not an amazing, cool stylus, just a pretty standard Android style stylus. But like, it's nice of them to give us one of those. Honestly, I love playing DS games on here. I've had so much fun. I can play DS games on lots of devices. I mean, the Ein Thor is great for DS too, but that thing is like twice the price of this thing. Once I got the lag and the refresh rate thing fixed with the update, I really just dove into my DS collection, and I've been loving playing all my old favorites and discovering new ones. This device feels more like a DS than any of my dual screen doodads. The DS is one of my favorite systems ever, and it's a library that I haven't explored a ton since I got into emulation, because until recently we haven't had great devices that have done DS emulation well. And now we have a whole bunch, and this is just another one. I can actually see myself playing a lot of DS on this DS Lite, because it's DS-like, and I like it. And that's it, I guess. That's my main thoughts. Kind of a neat device overall. It's got an interesting look to it, good controls, good build, good hinge, nice big 4-inch screens, a fine system. It's good for really retro stuff, not great for high-end stuff, worthless for 3DS, but really, really good for Nintendo DS. And it's called the RG DS, but I call it the DS Lite because it's a lot like the DS Lite, but a bit different. Like you.